I'd like to underscore three preoccupations, and because of the constraint of time, I'll be very schematic. The first preoccupation concerns education, which has been a running thread through our discussion. Education because it pulls people out of poverty. It is a great democratic equalizer. It is a means for social integration, gender equality, and of course, it introduces people to the global information highway. But education, or more specifically, public education is collapsing, particularly in poor, rural, and marginalized communities. The universal primary education, part of the Millennium Development Goals, I myself participated very actively in shaping the Millennium Development Goals, and one of them is universal primary education. I now regret this very much because it has become a major fraud. We have too many governments that have used this as a demagogic ploy. They wake up one morning, the president says, as of tomorrow, all schools are open to all children. There's no planning, there's no investment, no extra classes, no new teachers trained. The schools which were previously quality schools get overrun. 200 kids in one class, the teachers are demoralized, but the children of the intelligentsia, our kind of children, now are removed from these schools, they go to private schools. So we have a burgeoning industry in developing countries of private schools. When I was going to school, if you didn't make it to the public school, then you'd go to private school while waiting for a slot by competition to the public school. Now it is the opposite. So we are facing a prospect of segregation of the children of the well-to-do who can get the best education money can buy, and then the others who are condemned to a life of ignorance, a life of no hope, and basically they are out of what we're discussing today. These children, the youth, if they are given the chance for education, genuine quality education, they are a force for transforming their societies. They become active members of the interdependence movement. But when they're excluded, marginalized, condemned to a life of ignorance and frustration, they are an army of spoilers, what Ben calls members and a force for negative interdependence. There's a real urgency to do something about access to quality education for ordinary children from ordinary families. My second preoccupation is this. There is a normative thread that underpins the issue and movement for interdependence. This is an evolution that began, roughly speaking, post-1945. A whole body of norms and standards and values have been consciously developed. They are universal. They cover various aspects of our life. It is to do with environmental ethic, human rights, the protection and rights of women, genocide, the protection of civilians, particularly children and women in situations of conflict, free and fair elections. It's a long list of standards and norms which have been consciously developed over the decades and accepted universally. This is a powerful tool of legitimacy for interdependence. It means international public opinion, international organs can invoke these norms without being shy and hold everybody to these same standards which have been agreed upon. But there are two challenges concerning the community of values, as I call it, two challenges. One is we are not doing enough to apply these norms in fact. We celebrate their adoption, the fact that they are there, but we do very little to translate them in fact, to make a difference to the lives of those for whom they are meant. This is what I call translating from the era of the development of norms to the era of their application on the ground. We need to do a lot more. But secondly, we still live in a world which is terribly inconsistent. A world where one situation attracts the searchlight, in another situation we turn a blind eye, often for political and other considerations, where politics trumps these norms and rights. Those who are involved in the movement for interdependence must make it their business to advocate, to agitate for the consistent application of these norms, that similar situations deserve similar attention and similar applications of these norms. Otherwise, it punctures, it destroys the credibility of this community of values. My third preoccupation concerns a development that I would have wanted to hear more about in this conference. We are witnessing a major spiritual, religious resurgence, fervor across the globe. It is in search of spirituality and spiritual aspiration. It is also the assertion of identity. It is both. But the result is a major spiritual and religious revival and fervor across the globe. You look at the Pentecostal movement. We see a Pentecostal pastor here sweeping across the globe like wildfire in Africa, Latin America, parts of East and Central Europe. The Anglican Church, I will give the example of the Christian group because we've heard a lot about Islam. The schism which is developing within the Anglican Church. So you've got parishes and dioceses in the US that answer to a Nigerian archbishop, and vice versa. In the Catholic Church, how the charismatic movement, part of the liberation theology, what remains, challenges the orthodoxy in the Vatican. But by definition, these network of fellowship, of emotional ties, of solidarity, they don't recognize borders by definition. They see them as a part of a spiritual religious community. So in a way, they're the most natural expression of interdependence. And we need to assign to this phenomenon the primacy it deserves, because for most people, this is the most important single force that drives their life, that gives meaning to their life, that gives them incentive to do things. We ignore this at our peril. And I would have wanted to hear more about this, not only in the context of Islam, but across the board. Thank you very much.